How you guys doing? I'm not sure if anyone is going to be here, but we'll see. What do you guys say about not voting altogether? Oh, great. I got to change locations. Answer. If you're able to vote, I think you should because it's a good thing. Anything that improves the environment for us is good. It's good for us. Question number 2. What lesson should be learned from the killing of a police officer this past week? Answer. And so we have to repeat an old lesson. You have to know that there is a wind of liberalism blowing and it's all lies. They tell you statistics that are all lies. Their statements are all lies. People will never refrain from crime unless they are afraid of punishment. A murder has to have the death penalty. Otherwise, you'll never stop it. But these liars say there's no proof that the death penalty is a deterrent. You know, the Italian construction man has more intelligence than the editors at the New York Times. No question about it, because these are artificial people. They don't think straight. It would be the very best thing if the editor of the New York Times once took a walk in Central Park and he'd get a drubbing from some bums who would flash a knife on him. Then he'd stop being a liberal. Because in the ivory towers, it's all affectation. It's all showing off. I'm against taking human life. They say, oh, it's terrible. We're horrified. So what do? They're killing millions of babies every year. They're for abortion. That's all right. But taking human life, oh no. Who's human life? A murderer. Oh no, we don't repay murder with murder. Society themselves become the murderer. That's the very worst example. To murder a man who killed a policeman, it means we are the murderers. It's all garbage. They're fools. They have no intelligence at all. But they're doing it for a purpose, an affectation to show off, to make an impression on the world that they are higher people. The truth is they're the lowest of the low. Because they're the ones that advocate every form of perversion, every form of wickedness there is. And as long as we listen to these fools, we are the fools. And so how long, fellow Goyim, will you be blind, and will you vote for such people as, fill in the blank? You don't even think twice. Such a wicked son of wicked. Kerry's the one whose hand shed the blood of all these innocent victims when he vetoed the bill for the death penalty. Kerry is the arch murderer. All those people, I won't say the names, all these Orthodox Jews who make deals with Kerry, if Kerry were to see that they get certain funds from the state, so these Orthodox Ashkenanim will get the Jewish votes for him. They're all shedding blood, innocent blood and Jewish blood. There's only one way to deal with crime, and that there should be strict, stern punishments. For stealing, there has to be stern punishment for every kind of crime. And therefore, the world will never be safe when the liberals are in charge of the attitudes of the public. We have to free ourselves from these attitudes. And so what do we learn from a murder of a policeman? We learn that you must go back to what was years ago when they didn't murder policemen. They were afraid to murder a policeman because they knew it meant sure death. If you would murder somebody else, also there was a pretty good chance he'd end up in the electric chair. But with a policeman, he knew for certain that was his sure destination. But today, you see the results. That's what it caused. And we are the ones who are to blame. And our own lives, God forbid, are in danger because we are stupid enough to be swayed by the winds that sway these evil, wicked people. That's from Rabbi Avigdor Miller. Oh, looks like that lost somebody. Sorry, didn't like that. This is not about being smart because I'm stupid, and it's not about being right. I want to be right any more than what it takes to do what is right. But I've been thinking about this for a long time. The whole time I was doing, being a good student of Doug's. Sometimes it feels like I was the best student. Because I did all the insane stuff that he did and he was talking about. At least I was able to. I don't have any place to plant 500 trees, so I didn't do that. But the more I learned and the more I delved over it was like what is real communism? What is communist ideology? And I'm going to try to edit out certain things to try to keep an audience here as long as I possibly can. Now, maybe reveal everything at the end for anyone who doesn't already, have a huge idea where all this comes from. One, everything comes from God. Any fault is that I haven't worked hard enough to be worthy for God to bring the truth. Hopefully I've done done enough for someone else to see. But I kept thinking about all this stuff, like everything Doug talked about, conspiracies and ways to fight world government, get off the world government tit, and cut up your credit cards and become a free man. I really thought about really hard. I try to think like, is this going to work? Is this a feasible idea? Because I was doing it as much as I possibly could. I don't know anyone else that other than Doug that was stupid enough to burn money and put on YouTube or cut out their logos on their clothes. But I was thinking about it, and sometimes things take a long time to come together. Like you get a little piece here and a little piece there, and it doesn't all fully materialize until you get that last piece and God unlocks the whole thing and allows you to see it in your brain. And that thing that I just read from Robert Victor Miller, that is what did it. So I was thinking about this, not this specific thing, but this general topic, like all I could think about pretty much for the last week. I could barely focus on anything. And the Yetzer has been just driving me up the wall. And for you guys that haven't been here in a long time, forever, that's Satan. Satan is the block to everything good in this world. And he's put there by God. There's no such world as a thing that occurs without it being God's will. Nothing whatsoever. And I started thinking, what really is communist ideology? And it was that line in the in that post, one of Rev Avigdor Miller's old tapes. People will never be afraid of crime, never refrain from crime unless they're afraid of punishment. And the common denominator that what's the real root behind communism? I'm gonna wait a while and get some water here. You guys think about that. What is the root of communism? What is their main purpose? What do they hate more than anything? I can cut you off right there. It's not rich people, because there's plenty of people that are rich who are communists. Even in communist Russia, every communist regime always has some rich people. God put a little thing in my head that said, "Hey, you know what it is? It's me. I am what the communists hate more than anything. They hate God." And the really funny thing is, I used to have a serious, at least a socialist ideology. I fished around for the truth my entire life, and I was never satisfied with anything I found. Everything I looked into and dabbled in, and like, oh, that looks like fun, or it looks interesting, or maybe this will have the answer to all of life's problems. And what do you know? None of it did. Not until a few years ago. Like, even though it was staring me in the face, I was still so screwed up that I couldn't really see it. I knew there was something there, but I was like, I had a severe block from all the gross garbage that I corrupted my soul with. And so I kept, I do a little bit here and there, like mostly stuff that Doug said. Like, he didn't watch porn, so I'm not going to watch porn because I'm trying to be a good student. And he cut off all the tags to his clothes and burned some money, so I'm going to do that. And I found my rabbi. So I was sitting in the dust of his feet, drinking in his words of wisdom. And along this whole time, he got me to start like really using my head and like thinking about what is the outcome of my actions, and or any action. And I started like taking all the other stuff that I learned and trying to reason everything out, like what I was doing. Like, what value does this have? Like this, whatever it was, like posting on some Phil's sewage hole called a gun forum, or watching some random YouTube conspiracy video, or looking up wiki links, breadcrumbs to who knows what horror show of, you know, crimes that rich and famous people committed. And I kept doing that until, you know, I don't know, maybe a year into watching Doug, a little less than a year. And I finally just was like, I can't do it anymore. It's one, the stuff that I see is just too disgusting. And the other thing was, I tried to look at it from a military perspective, even though I've never been in the military. I wanted actionable intelligence. What can I do with, you know, the knowledge that Hillary Clinton surrounded herself with satanic pedophiles, and so did Donald Trump? And what can I do with the fact that, you know, it looks like a lot of bankers control the world? What can anyone do with any of that? Anything at all? And I started, you know, trying to figure out something, anything. What value does it have? Well, I slowly came to the conclusion it has absolutely no value whatsoever. Past a very limited point to understand that there's a lot of evil in the world. And it doesn't take that long to figure it out. It doesn't take, you know, 20 or 30 years of a person's life. You just know that pretty much when you walk out the door, or at least certainly after you spend any time on the internet, that the world is a disgusting place full of evil people. Really only need about one or two conspiracy theories of, you know, whatever to understand that there's something seriously messed up going on. Well, what in the hell can I do about any of that? I'm not a president. I don't own a military, or I'm not in charge of anything. All I can change is me. That's it. And I had a head start on a lot of people because I already had to face that with being an alcoholic and a drug addict. So it was, you know, probably a lot easier than most people. You know, or having to get over that hurdle. Which is not an easy hurdle, because the natural inclination is for everyone to point the finger at someone else. It's, you know, it's the cartels and the evil Jews and the bankers and, you know, whatever, communists. Anything but something that tells me that, you know, I need to do anything other than what I want to do, which is fulfill my own desires. I can make up my own rules because I'm smart, which is exactly how I thought for like 99% of my life. I'm smart. I know what's going on. I'm red pilled. I had no clue whatsoever, other than I was horribly lost. But that voice was like so faint and tiny. Just, you have no clue what you're doing, man. When are you going to give up and ask for some help? Moron. And over the last year, I tried to push all the stuff that I learned from Doug out of my head, but you know, it's like all the garbage from the past is like stuff from decades ago let alone a year or two ago, is still like churns up raw sewage, basically. The only thing a person can do is just, you know, learn more and beg God for the merit to have mercy on us and stuff it all to the bottom of a black hole so it never surfaces again. But I was thinking, how's it going to achieve anything good? And first it was a food forest thing. Like there's I don't know if this is his idea or just like, you know, the coincidence, but to like fight God with his own rules. Because there's a verse in the Deuteronomy, I think it's 2019 and 2020, about the rules of sieging a city. How when you shall besiege a city, you shall not cut down the trees for food, something like that. Or the trees of the field of man that you should besiege them. I was thinking that's, you know, at first when I first saw it, I was like, wow, Doug's idea is in the Bible. That's neato. That's so cool. And I sat on that for a while. And at first I was like, I read it later last year, going through the first half of what people know as the Bible. And when I read it this time, I was thinking, hey, that can't be his motivation to try to like outsmart God to save a bunch of wicked people. That doesn't make any sense at all. And then God help me. Please help me to focus. I was trying to think, like, how does it, like, any of it work? Seriously, even in the most, like, idealistic, perfect universe where anyone pays attention to anything that us crazy people have to say and do any of that stuff. And I was, you know, the whole time until I slowly transitioned to something more functional was, God, I hope this works. You know, I have no idea what else, like what other option there is to save myself or anyone else. God, I hope Doug's right. This is the way to go. But now I know it's not the way to go at all, whatsoever. And there's nothing wrong with planting a bunch of trees, growing your own food, and defending yourself is a law from God, and we're obligated to do that. But a person will end up doing what they plan for. So if we plan to get in a war, we're going to get into a war. We're probably going to become murderers and we're going to die and go to hell forever. But then I read that thing from Rev. Victor Miller about communists and liberals not liking to punish murderers. And I thought about a stream I did years ago, a couple years ago, I think. What is real communism? I really had no idea what that was until now. Now I know 100%. The one common denominator is communists hate God. And unfortunately, pretty much everyone in the world has a little bit of commie in them, whether we like to admit it or not. And at first, for most people that, say they believe in God, there's probably going to be a revulsion, like, that's not me. But in order to not hate God, you got to know who God is. And there's only one way to do that. I'm going to avoid this for a while, just because it's hard enough to keep anyone here for any length of time to get anything into an idea that they can understand. Everything takes a long time, a really long time. You gotta beg God for the help every step of the way. Please help us. But there's one crucial thing to know about who God is God runs the world. There's absolutely no thing that occurs whatsoever in this world that does not happen without God's full permission. Everything from the actions of Satan and all his demons that are in his army, which include, unfortunately, most people, because of the sins that they've committed, become essentially robots in his army. To the smallest, tiniest inconvenience that we have, like we reach our hand in our pocket and we stick ourselves with a needle, or we open a door and we get a splinter. There's a court of heaven that is convened and reviews everything in that person's life to see whether or not they deserve that pain, that suffering, that inconvenience. And so if God is that meticulous with the most minute details of our life, He is certainly going to be fully aware of absolutely everything and signing off on a worldwide pandemic and everything that, most of us hated about life in general for our entire lives, but especially about 2020, like the wildfires that were, half wild and half very not wild and artificial and set by like full-fledged card-carrying communists, to riots and everything in between, the mask orders and evil politicians and shutting down everything. God signed off on all that because He's trying to get our attention, to wake us up. And not very many people really got it. The natural reaction was, for most people, because they don't understand who God is that, oh no, it's a virus. We have to beg the government for help and, hide in a hole. And we're all doomed. Or violent rebellion and refusal to acknowledge reality. God was severely angry. But He's also given us a real big chance for stuff all of us in our houses, all alone, or at least with our families and whoever we live with nothing much to do other than think about what the hell we were doing with our lives. So for any of us that they got anything out of life in general, but specifically out of the events of 2020, that thought anything other than, you know, this is God, and he is not happy with me at all. Whatsoever. And I need to do teshuvah. I need to repent from my wickedness. Anyone that took anything other than that away from any time ever, from any inconvenience, they are to some degree a communist, and they have a severe issue with communist ideology. That is what real communism is. Communism is a failure, not just a denial, but a failure to understand who God is and how he runs the world. God is not messing around. His laws have consequences. But he is infinitely merciful. And he gives people so many chances. So many. Like he tries to wake them up by giving them a crippling illness. And then when he brings a miracle and they get healed, he goes against them. And then vaguely gives people the impression that, you know, they can continue with their sins, or even maybe start some new ones, so they have no idea that are sins. You ungrateful person. You don't love God at all. Not unless you do teshuvah. God desires our repentance. But first you have to know who God is and how to do that, because it's not, you know, it's not just something you make up in your own head. There's plenty of information for anyone that really wants to know. And pretty much every stream that I've done here for the last almost 2 years, it's a roadmap to how to go from being a retard to having a chance to have a good life. Even if you don't, you know, understand or believe that there's anything after this life, you need to understand that our actions affect our life now in this world too. From everything from, you know, what kind of like money that we make to survive, or, you know, if you don't make money, whatever food comes out of the ground or animals that grow, to the kind of kids that you're going to have. Because if you just go through life like an animal, you're going to have kids that are worse than animals, because that's the kind of soul that someone that acts like an animal merits to bring into the world. If you don't care about your kids, if you don't care about, you know, yourself or anyone else, you can do whatever you want to. Everyone has freedom of choice. That's the only freedom that there is. There's no other kind of freedom. We can choose life or we can choose death. Life is hard. A lot of times it sucks. Well, what else are you going to do? Cry like a baby? You're going to be a real communist then. Once you get a little ways into it, you realize that everything else before was garbage, just disgusting filth. And you don't want to do anything else. Absolutely nothing else. Not if you take it serious. Because you see miracles. One, you see the miracles that are there every day. Just the fact that you're breathing, alive. Well, you have eyes that can see. Sometimes not too well. Just the fact that we woke up today is a miracle for most of us. Because by the accounting of Satan and his strict judgment and prosecution, according to God's own laws, most of us don't deserve to wake up ever, any day. At least, not after about some point in time of our teenage years, because we've committed so many crimes that God has to show us rainbows on the wall, not just outside in the house, but like broadcast them in front of our eyeballs on the wall every single day to show that the world deserves to be wiped out because of its wickedness. But God made a promise. And he's patient. And he's merciful. And there's a few people that are trying to get a few more souls out of the pit of hell. And for anyone from the key base that thinks like this is too strict of judgment, that God can't be God is not a cream puff, man. God is not joking around. I know it's highly unlikely that any of you guys watch those Waco streams, but I was just reading the Torah portion like I do every week. Thank God. And for whatever reason, God stopped me at the exact point to put that thought into my head. And the Kohen shall clear the house. And I started looking up stuff because I couldn't think anymore. I just couldn't focus. And all I wanted to do was finish. It's hard enough every week, but that's God's word. How are you not going to try as hard as you possibly can to soak up every single letter? And we don't understand like what that even means until we work for it. Because God blinds us, so we don't deserve it. If we work hard enough, he'll give us a little bit. All the verses that for that, like, not only that week, but the exact the exact like 20 verses that are read on that day in pretty much every Jewish observant home around the world, connected to the exact anniversary of Waco 30 years later. And then I was thinking, it can't be that it happened on the same day in the Hebrew calendar that read the same Torah portion. So I just couldn't focus. So I had to go find out what day it was. It took me like an hour to figure it out. And I double checked like 4 or 5 times because usually I make a lot of mistakes and I'm still not sure if it's correct because no one's double checked it. You can go look for yourself, the Waco prophecy or whatever, structure clearing and Waco prophecy in the Bible from last week. And it wasn't the exact same verses 30 years ago on the day that Waco happened. But the amazing thing is it was Holocaust Remembrance Day and the day Waco occurred on the exact same day. And it was not only the exact same day in the Gregorian calendar, it was the exact same day in the Hebrew calendar, which is extremely rare, like unheard of. One, because there's no specific set cycle to their leap years. It's every 2 or 3 years, not every 3 years exactly. I mean, that would be like, okay, that's a coincidence. There are no coincidences whatsoever. God's trying to wake us up. And he made a covenant with the world, after the flood, that he wouldn't bring another flood and destroy the entire world. That's all he said. The sages say that he will ever destroy the entire world again completely. But he made no such promise that he wouldn't destroy our world. And he certainly never mentioned anything about fire, which the religious observant Jews, that's what they call the Holocaust. There's the Hebrew word for burnt offering, which that's one thing that I found ironic when I first started doing like conspiracy research on the Jews, is that the Holocaust is a Greek word. It's not a Jewish word. That didn't make sense at all to me. It's Greek for burnt offering, but the word in Hebrew is korban, and that's what the observant Jews call the Holocaust. It was an offering to God, where they got toasted. And that's what God did to all the wicked people in Waco. He torched them, and he's gonna do it again. I mean, God promises that if we don't all wake up and follow his law, that is super serious and very precise, even though it's pretty hard for stupid Goyim to figure out what that is. I'm trying to get offended. I'm a stupid Goyim too. Well, if we don't figure out what that is to the best of our ability and beg him for help and humble ourselves, he will humble us in the most serious way, just to save anyone that has any kind of chance before he does a great korban again and torches a huge chunk of people. And just so you guys know, there is no prophecy anymore. Not from Doug, and certainly not from me, and definitely not from the the messed up people at Waco. Not in any way, shape, or form. That's one thing I've learned is any kind of good prophecy that's accurate in any way does not, will not, like not even the next step down, which is called Ruach HaKodesh, the spirit of holiness, which amazingly, to my surprise, anyone is capable of attaining, even a goy. I wouldn't have thought it was possible, but I don't know much of anything. But even that is not gonna rest itself on someone that doesn't observe the laws of the Torah, not anything else, not not the New Testament, not the nonsense we make up in our own mind. And if you're like most people that believe in the New Testament, you're probably someone somewhat like I used to be. I kind of thought the New Testament was somewhat true, but definitely not 100% because I started looking at history and basically everything was taken over by the Catholic Church. And they're obviously completely against the laws of the Old Testament because it says, no graven images, and they screwed that up pretty bad. So I had looked at everything else but the truth, trying to dance around it. And I thought, everyone else got it wrong. They just didn't, I'm gonna learn Hebrew. I'm gonna translate my own version, and then I'll find out what the truth is. Man, people are so stupid and so arrogant. But it's so hard to fight Satan because he's inside our hearts. Like quite literally. There's a piece of God and then a little piece that Satan controls. This is an opportune time, but I gotta get some water. Hold on. That's why everyone does anything that is against God. Because the other half of our heart, all it wants to do, is observe God's law, to cleave to God, to glorify his name. That's it. Nothing else. But God put us in this work to toil. And we can either ignore our purpose here and go after all our physical desires, or we can find our purpose and we can channel it and we can fight for the truth. And we can have a good life. And if God has mercy on us, we can go to heaven. But for me, more importantly, I can fulfill God's will. I've tried really hard to make that all I want to do. It's definitely not easy, and it's not an obligation for anyone, to have anything good or to go to heaven. That's what I want, and it's God grant us the strength to do it, please. But we not only does Satan, what the Jews call Yetzer Hara, or evil inclination. Not only does it have to be there to be an obstacle so we can merit eternity, because we have no concept what that even is. How, like, imagine all the good ever for all eternity for every single person, and that's not it, because it's forever, and that's our reward. So God has to at least, put it on easy mode and not just make us like robots. And this may be hard to believe, but we all asked for this before we came down here. Because up in heaven, before we came down to this world, we started to see it was like real communism. God made us, we're all sitting around, everything's just amazing. But then we started wondering, like, how do we repay this wonderful gift that God has given us? And there was nothing for us to do, because a soul can't perform God's will, can't perform commandments, it can't abstain from sin, can't do anything. So God made the world and put us here so we can earn our reward. And we all have to choose. It's really simple. You just got to ask God for help and start reading, start watching, and tell that voice in your head that's going to try to get you to stop at every turn to shut up and get back in his hole, you dirty liar. My God, help us all.